Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing high season in Thailand, specifically the twilight of high season. What are we talking about? Well, from, sort of, and depending on who you talk to in like expat circles or even Thais, high season, to my mind, usually starts, call it November, and it usually begins to taper off around about February. Now, for lack of a better term, we sort of get a dead cat bounce, if you will, to use sort of stock market lingo. You get that in sort of in terms of the numbers of tourists, you sort of get that in Songkran. So, and I know that this new government is going to be really playing up Songkran as an international holiday. So I'm kind of wondering if April this year might actually be more effusive than we usually see it. That said, usually you start seeing high season starting to kind of taper off February going into March. By about mid-March, we really notice here at the firm things really slow down. It's like a dramatic difference from one week to the next, from like the second week in March to the third week in March. It just seems like in terms of demand for services and things, it just sort of goes off a cliff there for a minute. Now, again, we're doing different kinds of work over the summer, but the reason for this video is one trend that I have noticed, and again, I'm not saying that this is guaranteed to happen in the future, but one trend that I have noticed having lived here as long as I have is that as high season starts to fade out, you start to see immigration get more proactive. I have noticed this quite a little bit, and I think part of the thinking behind that is, look, during high season, they'll do things like, expand the visa-free programs, or they will allow for longer visa exemption status during the high season period, or just generally speaking, they're used to seeing folks coming in and using visa exemptions and using things like tourist visas. But on the back half, of the year, if you will, what I think of as sort of the doldrums in terms of tourism, the sort of May, not so much May, but more like June, July, and August, the demand for tourism in Thailand is not that high. And it's sort of like the tide going out to, as I think it was Warren Buffett who said, regarding, liquidity, and when there's lots of liquidity in the market, but then liquidity dries up, he says, when the tide goes out, you can see who's not wearing any swimming trunks, basically. You can see who's skinny dipping. And the analysis is that when there's a lot of liquidity in the market, you can't really see the firms that are struggling because there's just so much liquidity out there. In terms of Thai immigration, to sort of circle it back to this, when there's a lot of tourism, they can't necessarily, Thai immigration can't really get a feel for who's actually trying to utilize tourist visa status to live in Thailand during like high season, when people first come here, especially during high season. But now you get over into like July and you have somebody who's trying to continuously do border runs, coming in on 30-day stamps, or continuing to try to extend their visas in Thailand off of an exemption or a tourist visa. And Thai immigration starts getting a much clearer picture of who is trying to live in Thailand. And then at that point, they have to ascertain whether or not they have the proper visa. And if they don't have the proper visa, generally speaking, they'll then be effectively removed from the country if they're, if they go into overstay, or basically they'll say, yeah, we're not going to keep allowing you to come in on 30-day stamps, or even 90-day stamps as they issue now to certain nationalities. We're not going to keep issuing visa exemption stamps because we think you're living here. That can also happen with tourist visas as well. They'll say, look, we think, you're using this tourist visa to live here, and that's not the purpose of the visa. So again, and then you can also see crackdowns. And I'm not saying it's a foregone conclusion. We will see crackdowns going into this quote unquote low season. But that said, I have found that in the past, crackdowns are much more likely during low season than I've seen it happen during high season.